Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Af Malhotra on Straight Talk with Af. Once again, I bring you a tremendous guest, and this time it is someone who is pioneering education, creating one of the most enriching virtual learning experiences that you will see in the education sector today, and perhaps a field and a paradigm shift that could transform the way we educate our children. Now, I will make this ultra clear, and you will agree with me that if I was to ask you to right now, what are the three big transformations in the technology sector, many of you as my guests, as straight talkers, would right at the top of your head right now say, well, it's the cellular revolution, it's the information revolution, it's the AI revolution, it's the mobile phone, a 5G smartphone revolution, it's this and it's that. And there's a long list of technological shifts that you'll be able to share. And if I ask you the same question, but I change the sector to education, I think you might be scratching your heads. So, and there lies the biggest problem and opportunity for us. Welcome to my guest today, Kristen Shroff, the CEO of Prisma, a digital school, a virtual learning experience, and something that has totally captivated me. And it was necessary for me to bring Kristen on the show today. So Kristen, welcome. Thank you for dialing in from the United States. I know you're in Charlotte. Over to you. Tell us who you are. And then I just want to go straight into this fascinating venture that you're pioneering.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Af. I'm really excited to be here. Like you said, I'm Kristen Shroff. I'm the CEO of Prisma. My whole career has been in education. So I actually studied clinical neurobiology in college. So got to education through sort of alternative means, really thinking about how everybody's brain works differently. And, education should be really personalized to each person, right? So I, was studying the brain, but then kind of transitioned into education. I was a teacher for several years, just at a traditional public school in New York City here in the States. Then that was around the time charter schools really started picking up in the US. So we started thinking about, what are some different and more innovative ways to educate kids and how can we step outside of the traditional mold? So I was then a founding team member, really designing curriculum at an innovative charter school in New York City. I was there for several years. Then I was accepted into a fellowship program where I got to spend a whole year just traveling the country, studying different innovative school models. What are schools in California doing, and in New York, and in Texas, and in Tennessee, and in Minnesota, and getting to speak with the leaders, talk to the students, really get to know some of the families at these schools. What do you like about it? What do you not like? What could be better? How do you imagine that, the world of education could be different? Yeah. From there, I was awarded a charter and got to start my own charter school in New York City. And I was the executive director there for several years. And then when COVID hit, I was introduced to the amazing founders of Prisma, Victoria Ransom and Alon Chouard. And they really founded Prisma. They had been tech entrepreneurs previously, sold a company to Google. And, as their young children were getting to be school age, they started thinking, again, like, how can we break the mold? What do we, what should education really be? What do we believe? And, they started touring some schools and they were seeing, this really intense focus on test prep and all this pressure and memorizing facts when, we all know that you can Google facts now. That's not the most important thing out there. And they saw a couple really small, really personalized, really project-based, exciting, innovative approaches to education. But, they're all hyper-localized, right? And you get less exposure to people from different cultures, different communities, and you're really locked into the school schedule. There's no flexibility there. So they just started thinking, what if we were to bring education online and to make it innovative and personalized and flexible and interest driven. And, got to talking with them and, it sounded like a really exciting model. I ended up we launched Prisma in 2020. So started with developing curriculum with just a really small set of about 30 learners and families who we really innovated with and, tested things out, tried things out, really were doing lots of different models. But the core thing to us was, number one, we want kids to love learning. What does it mean when kids really light up and they're excited about learning? And two, actually, when we first started, we started thinking, maybe we want to prepare kids for the jobs of the future. So we did all this research, what are the jobs of the future going to be? How can we prepare kids to be successful in the future? And then we came across the crazy statistic that 65% of kids are going to work in jobs that don't yet exist. And so really, who are we to say we know what the jobs of the future are? No one does. We don't know what the jobs of the future will be, but we do know the skills that kids need to be successful in the future. So we really founded Prisma thinking about, one, we want kids to love learning, to light up, to be excited about it. But two, we want to prepare them with the skills that they need to thrive in the future. So we think a lot about this idea of applied curiosity and really this personalized approach to education. What are you interested in? What rabbit holes do you want to go down? How can you make your education really, driven by excitement and zest and passion for learning? Two, we think about an innovator's mindset. So, the realest, deepest learning comes from making and doing and creating things and building things. So our whole curriculum is really project-based and theme-based, which is exciting. Three, we think about communication and collaboration. I mean, there's nothing more important in this world than, getting to articulate your points and get to know other people and build relationships and, be able to communicate and collaborate really effectively. And finally, this idea of initiative and follow through. So, how do you project manage yourself? How do you set tasks for yourself? How do you set deadlines? Traditional schools are often so over scaffolded and rigid in this way, right? Where it's like, here's your worksheet, you have 15 minutes to do your worksheet, now give it to me. And so we really want to create a space where kids can learn and fail and try new things and really develop those, project management and initiative and follow through skills they need to be really successful. So I've been with Prisma since the beginning, and I'm currently the CEO.
Wow. Can I repeat that back? So four very interesting areas, and we'll unpack these. Applied curiosity, I'm definitely going to be digging into that. Applied curiosity, innovators mindset, which we're very familiar with for my friends out there who are tech entrepreneurs or in digital. We're very familiar with this concept because it's been analyzed and debated and practiced in so much detail in so many different scenarios all over the world. So we love that. Communication and collaboration, like absolutely just bang on. And one of the things I will say about that is the Gen Z sort of community that I'm engaging with. They are fantastic communicators and collaborators, actually, in a different way to what we would deem as being, default today. So they do it on social so well and so quickly, and they've got all these hacks, and they don't tend to use full sentences. They have, acronyms and various ways of communicating, which is foreign language to many people, actually. So it is actually their own way of communicating, frankly. If you look at reframe it, they're actually very good at communication and collaboration for their cohorts, where the problem lies, however, is when you come out of your cohort, your ability to have cross-generational, cross-cultural,
and code switch between different circumstances.
Correct. Code switch. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And the fourth area is, that's such an important part about sort of the initiatives and follow-throughs, and you almost have to initiate to have the initiative to, and you have to. That's where the education comes in, to then understand what it means to follow through. And I think, wow, if you're able to do even 10% of what you've described in each of these areas. I think most parents would bite your arm off, really, figuratively speaking, obviously. And so take us through, firstly, just take us through, we'll come back to these, take us through what sort of kids, what sort of children have you got at Prisma, and what sort of parents do you have at Prisma?
Yeah. Oh gosh, the kids at Prisma are absolutely amazing. They're creative, they're funny, they're silly, they're smart, they're brilliant. So we've got lots of different types of kids and families at Prisma, because we find that it's actually been a fit for lots of different types of families. So it's a pretty diverse community. We've got a good group of families that were homeschooling previously, either because of the pandemic or before, but they really were looking for more community. How do I, get my kids involved with other kids that they're with really consistently? Of course, you can take courses on OutSchool, but they're here and there. And how do we build relationships, not just with kids in our local community? Same thing with homeschooling and with public schools. It can be so hyper local, right? You're here you are with just these same kids in your community. But if you bring it online, right? Like you can have best friends all over the country, all over the world, and you really get to understand each other and have these kind of deeper bonds, right? So families that are looking for community have been a great fit for Prisma. Families that were homeschooling before, it's a lot of work to like pull in curriculum from all these different sources. And how am I doing it? Am I doing it right? At Prisma, we have this really innovative, curated curriculum that, we know meets all the standards that learners need to accomplish, but does so in a really engaging project-based way that's really hands-on with, on-screen and off-screen options. Yeah. So families looking for that kind of cohesive but engaging curriculum, it's been a great fit for. And families that, they were homeschooling before, but it's like, oh, I don't want to be my child's teacher anymore, right? They're getting to an age where all of a sudden, like, I'm the one telling them to clean up the room and, clean up the table and do this and do that. And I don't want to also be their teacher. I want like a real educator who's experienced to, come in and really support and be my partner in educating my child. So we see a lot of homeschool families that find that Prisma has been a great fit. We've got families that, for whatever reason, traditional school just wasn't a fit, either socially or academically. We have learners at Prisma who are really gifted and who are just incredibly bored sitting in a traditional classroom, that's kind of tailored to the middle. They're bored. They want to go at their own pace. They want to do their own things. They want to go fast where they want to go fast, or they want to slow down and dive deep where they want to dive deep. And that, kind of one size fits all model just wasn't working for them. Or learners that, maybe are twice exceptional and they want to go faster in some areas, but filling gaps in other areas. Prisma is a great fit for, because our curriculum is really flexible, right? If you're a fourth grader in high school geometry, no problem. If you're a seventh grader who needs a little support with reading and catching up, you can go at your own pace and, fill in those academic gaps in a way that you can't in a traditional, brick and mortar model. We've got families that are world schooling, or that, live in several different locations. So, they're traveling throughout the year. And so the flexibility of our model works really well for them. We've got learners that, do Prisma out of the back of a van sometimes, or, in an airport, because it can really go with you wherever you want, right? That whole model that, so many people want to work from home or work hybrid or work remote now because they want that flexibility. We offer that to adults, but what about kids? We can, give them that flexibility as well.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about the sort of age brackets that what's your sweet spot? So what sort of age brackets do you really serve here?
Yeah, so we start in fourth grade. So US standard, really in around third to fourth grade, there's that transition from learning to read to reading to learn.
Because we have an international audience, just to tell us the ages, that'll be helpful, because we have people from Asia, we have people from Europe,
sure. Yeah, helpful. Like 9 to 18.
9 to 18. Wow. Yep. Okay. And so how does that sort of speak to, because let me first start with all the concerns, and then we'll go into the model. I'm playing devil's advocate. So the natural concerns are sort of the first, concern is the social mobilization, and a school gives you an environment where there's so many kids running around your classroom. There's physical contact 6-7 hours a day, and this appears to be more digital. So tell us a little bit more about how that works, and how do you see that playing itself out?
Sure. So a couple answers to that question. First, of course, we embed a ton of different socialization opportunities within our program. So we have daily enrichments where learners can come together. We have a daily stand-up, which is community building. We've got co-working lounges, collaborations on projects. Kids are starting businesses together. We've got learner-led clubs. All of those social things that you find at a traditional school, you also find at Prisma, but it is virtual. And then, also with Prisma, you have a ton of flexibility to do other things during the day. There are homeschool co-ops that you can meet up with. There's learners that you can meet up with together in person. We've got a Prisma family-led travel club where families travel all over the world together. We had a group of families go to Costa Rica for almost a month together. Another group of families that are traveling to Italy for a while together. Yeah. They, drive and fly across the country to meet up together, to do pop-up hubs. So you do have a lot of that flexibility within your day. I mean, you do, as a parent, need to think about, okay, what kind of in-person socialization opportunities am I going to make for my child? Are they going to join a sports team or an arts club? And there's lots of different things that are going on that they can be a part of as well. And then I think the other part of that too is, if you really think about what a traditional school looks like, if you walk into it, how much of it is socialization and how much of it is sitting really quietly in rows, listening to a teacher talk, or all writing an essay together, right? Like, not all of traditional school is maybe as socialized as we might think. So I
Yeah.
think there's lots of
Yeah.
different ways to get that
Yeah.
socialization. I would not downplay its importance. It is important for kids to
Yeah.
interact with kids.
Yeah, I mean, you are preaching to the converted, so I'm trying not to be biased about it and positively biased because I get what you're doing and I believe in it. I'm just trying to take the other view. Here's another angle, which is, so one is the social element. So I think what you're saying, in other words, is over time, and let's be fair, this is nascent and it's developing and it's going to get better over time, and
Right.
it's going to evolve. And as it evolves, because we will evolve.
Yeah.
Children will evolve, parents will evolve, our expectations are going to change. And in this AI world that we live in, we will increasingly, very quickly start to look for alternative ways of doing things.
Hmm.
And our children will be sharper, smarter, faster
Hmm.
in ways that we cannot even imagine. To your point about the jobs, the 65% of jobs that actually don't even exist today. We could take some educated guesses or watch science fiction, think about what they may be, right? Like a prompt engineer is the new hot one for
Right.
generative AI, but even
Yeah.
that is going to last for a couple of years and change. And so the other point I would add to your statement is it's not just the jobs that you might think you want to train your children for, which by the way, again, is a blur. It's like you have to make friends with uncertainty there. It's
Right.
also the fact that these jobs are going to be transient. So they're going to keep changing. It's not going to be the permanent job like, I do this and you're training
Yeah.
me for this.
Yeah. You need to be a lifelong learner and be really agile and able to adapt
Absolutely.
and learn new things, of course.
Yeah, and absolutely. And one of the things I love about this form of learning, if it's done right, and I think you're heading in the right direction, one of the few, that it allows you to become ambidextrous. I mean, this is what we
Hmm.
push to the corporations. This is half of my time on this show is spent on educating people on adaptability, agility, flexibility, open-mindedness, growth mindset, da 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 da. And you will not be surprised, but you will know that we have a big battle, in fact, a war we are engaged in right now with the rigidites, like the Luddites. I've made that up. Other people are rigid,
Yeah.
essentially, and they refuse to change, and legacy lovers, right? And
Hmm.
so technology won't spare anyone. It'll just happen, and if you're not in the game, you'll lose out. We saw that through COVID, and I as I think about what you're describing, whether you like it or not, if you're listening to this, if another pandemic hits us, which is probably likely at some point in the future, yes, we'll cope much better. But think about the structures of the schools. They just about survived post-COVID, just about. And even now, I don't think schools have really changed. I can speak for Europe and UK. Not really. I mean, a few more laptops and a few more apps, but
Yeah.
actually it's not groundbreaking innovation. And so
Hmm.
it's still buried in the traditional ways of doing things. So it's not hybrid enough yet. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, if you think about, the social aspect, fine, we can debate that all day long and we can come up with a roster of things your children do when they're not learning, for example.
Right.
Tell me a little bit more, I'm still playing the sort of darker sides. Tell me a little bit more about uh, use cases where you have children who are struggling with this approach. Like, why would someone come in and it wouldn't work for them? I'm sure there have been situations like that too.
Yeah, I mean, shockingly, we haven't had too many cases where it hasn't worked out, but there are definitely situations where we think about at Prisma autonomy levels, right? So how independent are you? How mature are you? How much can you work on your own versus how much support you have at home, right? So we have learners at Prisma who their parents go to work all day and they're actually doing Prisma from home and they do it totally independently. And they're doing great. We survey our parents. The vast majority of families say they spend less than an hour working with their kids on their Prisma work each day
Right.
because the kids are so invested and excited about it themselves. But
Right.
there are kids who maybe have struggles with executive functioning or ADHD, and they need somebody sitting next to them all the time, supporting them,
Mm,
helping them. It is a virtual model, right? There
mm,
are coaches, they are hands-on, they're supportive, and they will check in with kids, but they're not sitting right next to them, right? They can't
yeah.
sit down and say like, okay, you have to do this right now, or let's get back on track, or let's take a break and then get back started again. So when we have learners that are in that kind of lower autonomy section, we find that Prisma works really well for them if they have a parent who's able to sit near them and support them and be there with them. But if you kind of run that low autonomy quadrant and your parent, doesn't have capacity or time to really sit with you and support you, then we find that Prisma isn't yet a fit for families like that. But
Do you tend to is this a private school, so you charge fees every year for
we do,
this?
yeah.
Okay. Are you at liberty to share how much that is?
Yeah, sure. So our middle school, we've got sort of 3 different programs. Our middle school, which we call 4th through 8th grade, is $9,750 per year. The high school is $10,750 per year. And we also have a middle school parent coach program where you get access to the full curriculum, to all the live time, to all the social experiences. But instead of having a learning coach, a teacher who's there supporting, giving feedback, the parent takes on that role. And that one's $4,800 per year.
Okay. And
We
are
do
these
also
online?
offer need-based scholarships as well.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
I was going to ask you that. And are these so how many kids have you got actually in the school? How many pupils do you have right now?
Yeah. Right now we have around 200.
200. Wow. That's a pretty sizable number. Wow. Okay. And what's the demographic? Are they all you have to be in the US? Can you be anywhere in the world? I guess it's virtual, so
Yeah, it's virtual. You can be anywhere in the world. Learners spend about half their time doing live sessions and half doing asynchronous work, their projects. During the live sessions, it really is more, we do mostly have US based time zones now. We have a couple families in Europe who do just kind of Prisma in like late afternoon. It's about 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. for them that their children are on live. And so the morning is when they work on their asynchronous work. And we're actually launching in Australasia this coming January as well. So then for families that are just traveling around the world or live in Bali, Australia, Indonesia, we'll have a cohort for them as well.
Yeah. I'm starting to think that you need to have some representative in the UK or European space, because I guess the element that I find is going to be a competitive advantage is if you've got a UK base, for example, I'm just thinking about the application here.
Right.
At some point over the next couple of years, if it takes a couple of years to build out the ecosystem, you will need the physical social aspects of it covered. So like clubs and tennis and sport and stuff. So there'll be some collaborations that will need to happen at a local level. It's a little bit like Steiner School. Like we have Steiner schools here in the UK, and I'm sure you've heard of Steiner, and but they're scarce, right? You'll find like 4 in all of the UK, mostly located in a 5 to 10 mile radius from London. It could be out somewhere in the district, in more rural areas. And you've got to live close to it to be able to go to that school. But again, it's not very democratic. It's not, a level playing field, is it? Because, if I want to send my daughter or son to it, I'll have to relocate, move somewhere. Hopefully I can afford a property in that area. And then pay to go to that school to give my child the sort of personalized physical school environment that I really wish that they get. But it's not quite available to and accessible to everyone. But what I think is Prisma can be, if you can create that hybrid environment. So I guess, is that part of your plan in the future when you think about growing?
It is part of our future plan. Yeah. Right now we're focused on our virtual model, but we definitely imagine a world in which we've got pop-up hubs or kind of flexible, almost like a WeWork kind of co-working spaces, throughout the world where learners and families can pop in and do their Prisma work together in community. That is part of our longer term vision. We're not there yet, but we certainly imagine a world in which that exists.
I could see that playing out, even if you're doing a collaboration with co-working spaces today, who are struggling, by the way, most of them, because not everyone's going into it. So if people don't go to work, kids could go to school, and you reutilize that space in a very inventive way. I will connect you to someone, and this is a pretty relaxed show, but now we're talking entrepreneurship too, because you are an entrepreneur. There's a dear friend of mine who's in the States, who I will connect you to, and I won't mention him here, who's doing some incredible work in repurposing churches and synagogues. So there's, unfortunately, religion is on the decline, as in people don't physically go to churches and places of worship as much as they did. And so there's a lot of free space.
The charter school that I started in New York, we started in a church in our first year. For some space, and then we built our own building after that. But
and there's a whole social impact piece here, because whilst you're doing the virtual element, if there were opportunities for people to congregate and meet together, like young kids or whatever it may be, but the spaces were available, affordable, accessible.
Yeah.
And, you're not competing for like, oh my God, I need that desk, or I need that chair. Oh my God, the coffee's run out. And where else could you find that? But, places of worship. And there is something quite, you don't have to be religious, but there's something quite sort of pious, I guess, about that as well. And anyway, an idea, I will connect you to my dear friend after the show if you're interested.
Yeah,
Because
please do. I'd love to.
he's building an Uber equivalent for that. So it's an app that allows you to use all vacant spaces and places of worship in the US.
Wow. What an interesting idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd definitely be interested in connecting with him.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. I'll do that. So a few more things about the sort of worrying side, and then we'll go into the fun, exciting parts.
Sure.
And so when you think about, a dear friend of ours connected us, right? And he sends his kids to Prisma. And I did ask him, and he was like emphatic about the feedback and wow, this is incredible. And he did send his kids to private school or independent school, paid school earlier on.
Right.
And it's more affordable. He said it's more affordable and it's incredible. And the kids love it and we love it and so on and so forth. And he described it beautifully, which is what sort of captivated me and why I requested you to come onto the show. Then again, I want to speak on behalf of some teachers, like the teachers in normal schools, not digital schools. They will come at you, of course, many of them, I'm sure you've had this 1,000 times, with this deep sense of concern and worry about the fact that, surely it's fine for some people, this is okay, and that's fine, but surely, curriculum-based education aligned to the national curriculum or the local curriculum is essential. It's essential for teachers to be physically around these children because everyone's dependent on social media apps. Gosh, there's a whole array of issues that comes from that. Our kids are essentially living in virtual worlds. Do we want more of that? Aren't we actually trying to humanize them? That's a word that comes up again and again on this show, by the way, the humanization, especially in relation to AI. What are your general views around that? How would you sort of provide an input or viewpoint around what I've just described?
Yeah, so there's a kind of a couple of different pieces of what you mentioned there. Number one was the national curriculum piece. And at Prisma, it's not just willy-nilly, right? We do have all of the competencies and standards that learners need to learn, and we kind of take them and we backwards map them onto a whole year of learning and content. And we are ensuring that our kids are learning exactly what they're meant to be learning, that they would be learning in their traditional schools. In fact, at Prisma, our learners actually learn more. So we give our learners NWEA MAP assessments. It's a computer adaptive, nationally normed assessment. So it compares learners at Prisma to this huge subset of, learners that have taken this assessment across the world in all different grade levels, and it gives them a scale score. So it says, here you're in the 95th percentile compared to all other kids at your age in reading. You're growing at the 50th percentile compared to all other kids at your age level in math. At Prisma, our learners grow 160% of their expected growth in reading each year and 150% of their expected growth in math each year. So we actually see that our learners are learning is accelerated at Prisma because they're getting this education that's so tailored to their individual level. And, so in addition to growing and, reading and math, which of course are incredibly important, they're also developing these life skills, applied curiosity and innovator's mindset, communication and collaboration, initiative and follow through. So we do both there. That's kind of the first part. And then the second part was about the teacher needing to be with the learners. We actually find it's really interesting. We have amazing educators at Prisma. I'm sure it's the same in the UK as it is in the US, but there's lots of talk. So many educators want to leave the classroom. They want to get out. It's so hard. Every time we post a job, we get 500 applicants overnight like that for teachers.
No way. Wow.
So many teachers want to come to Prisma. So we just have the cream of the crop, the best of the best, award-winning, teacher of the year, NASA trained scientists, PhD in math, our educators, they truly are just exceptional because teachers know that this is the right model, this like personalized, interest-driven, relationship-based kind of education. And they say, our coaches, they meet with each learner each week, one-on-one. They only have 15 to 20 learners in their cohort. Teachers at traditional school may have 100 kids and they never meet with them one-on-one. Our coaches are checking in with kids sometimes every day, really getting to know them. They know the names of their chickens in their backyards and their favorite YouTube videos. And they have this really deep relationship with each children. And that's actually with each child. And that's actually one of the things that our coaches say the most is that they really, really know each child, and they really are able to build these relationships unlike what they ever had in in-person school, which is kind of interesting. And then, the third point that you had there about, we want to have these in-person experiences. We don't want just this like AI driven world. I agree. I think in-person socialization is really important. And you do get a lot of being in person with other children. And our hope at Prisma is not that kids are glued to a computer from 9 to 5, like little office workers with a briefcase next to them or something. That's not our vision. Of course, it's a virtual model. So it's, delivered online, but, kids are out in their backyards building a rocket, or they're, at a local art center, creating a piece of artwork. They're doing, service learning in their community and volunteering and giving back. And so the idea is that they're not just glued to their computers, that they're out in the world doing great things. And I think there also is a bit of a difference between when you think about screen time, there's active screen time and passive screen time, right? So there's passive screen time where you're just staring at your phone, kind of scrolling through. That's not what the live time at Prisma is like at all. We don't have lectures. We have debates. We have discussions. We have escape rooms. We have interactives that they're playing together. They're discussing important world issues. They're talking to each other, engaging with each other, building things together, making things together. So it's not this idea of, or even in a classroom where you sit there, you listen to somebody lecture at you. When we have learners together during that live time, that's our really big focus on communication and collaboration. So they're always engaging with each other and working together and solving problems together and creating things together. So I think that's also a difference there between that active and passive screen time.
Have you thought about the business model and the evolution of the learning model in the sense that if you think about what you're doing, let's assume it's trailblazing for a moment. And I'll give you an example of, I don't know, a great example is OpenAI right now. Okay, so OpenAI has been around for a while. It did something, record breaking in November, and it brought its ChatGPT to the rest of the world to make it mainstream. Okay, and it's received billions before and more billions after from different companies. Now let's call that a trailblazing company and technology. Okay, and let's put you alongside that in parallel, not the same, but in parallel. And you're a disruptor, right? We'll call you a disruptor. Okay, you're disrupting. Now, one of the things I feel that is a responsibility, unfortunately, a disruptor does have. It's kind of it's not cool, but it's true. Over time, when you realize that you are a trailblazer, when you actually realize it and you start to see the momentum and the traction, there is this social impact side, and there's this, moral side that does kick in at some point. And even if you don't want it to kick in, your constituents will make sure it kicks in and it's alive and it's there and it's an issue you've got to deal with at board level, and all your stakeholders will care about it. And if you have investors at some point, they'll care about it too, which is, what are you doing ethically to ensure that we don't lose sight of what we originally designed this to be? Right? Your founders that you named earlier on. And so it's a little bit like what we're doing with AI today, and the debate of ethics and regulation and standardization is coming into play at such an aggressive level, in Europe more so than even in the United States. And so what I wanted to throw at you, it's not an answer I'm looking for, but it's just a thought I had, is there is an important sort of responsibility that comes with this sort of trailblazing power that you have self-created. It's like your superpower. And I sense that at some point you will need to start to think about, well, not just us and me and my brand, and we're so amazing and we've got 20,000 kids. It's also taking people along with you, not everyone, but someone who might say, look, I'm a school, I get it. I believe now. But I need your help, and I'm not just going to abandon my school because I have my responsibilities. How do we mesh together? How do we help one another? So you'd create a sort of symbiotic system where you're not leaving people behind. You're actually saying, hey, come along.
Come with us,
onto the bus, come with us. Have you thought about that? Because that's what I think, as an entrepreneur and a thinker, that's what plays on my mind.
Yeah, no, we definitely have. We imagine a world in which there's lots of different types of Prisma, right? The metaphor that we use is, Match.com owns, all these different dating sites, right? There's teachers date teachers and farmers date farmers and all different ethnicities. And, we imagine a world in which there's lots of different types of Prisma, right? Maybe there's a Prisma where we're, providing the curriculum to schools for free to use, or different projects or different teacher trainings that we can do on how to build these life skills in learners. Or here, take one of our, themes or projects and do it with your kids. We imagine that, or a world that's, maybe for younger learners, or has more intensive online support or more mental health supports built in, or, even more flexible with less live time for families that, really want a totally flexible experience. So we certainly do imagine a world in which, we're able to branch out from just our core kind of, virtual school 4th through 12th grade, which is what we're focused on now. But, down the road, we do see a world in which there's lots of different versions of Prisma and ways that we can engage with other communities too.
Yeah. I think that's going to be super important. And so let's move to sort of the near to long-term future. So now you've got about 200 kids. Can you give me a bit of a sense for the audience? What does the live platform look like? Is it like a Zoom, or what is the supplier base? I guess you have like a mesh of different technology solutions plugged in to give you this sort of complete experience. Can you describe that? I know we can't see it today, but can you describe it and tell us where someone can experience it as well?
Sure. So yes, we do, deliver our, live lessons via Zoom. We also use the Google Suite as well. So everything's really kind of well integrated. And so we curate all of these different projects and resources for learners. And so each cycle has a different theme. So every 6 weeks, we have a different theme. And it's something that really unites all the learners. So we still have this idea of applied curiosity, right? What are you interested? What path do you want to go down? But we have these different themes that bring them all together, right? So I'll give you an example. In our theme, cities of the future, for example, kids are imagining what the world of the future might be like. And so they start with an explorations phase where we've curated tons of different articles, videos, podcasts, interactives, games. Some learners are really interested in this idea of space. Maybe in the future we'll need to give up on Earth and go to space. And so they're, reading all different articles about the physics of if it's better to live on Mars or on the moon or in an exoplanet or an O'Neill colony. Other learners are, saying, I really want a kinder, more equitable future. And so they're, reading about, how to create more equitable communities. Other learners are really into city planning. So they're learning about how to, design a city. Others are interested in, green architecture. And so they're learning about, what are all the different methods and materials that go into creating a more eco-friendly city in the future. And so they start with this exploration phase. We create tons of different little mini projects for them. So, maybe you're launching a water rocket off into space, or you're doing a Google Doodle, or, all these different, kind of mini experiences that are hands-on that they can try. And then they choose a bigger project that they want to work on. So, maybe some learners are designing their own building. Maybe others are doing an environmental advocacy project where they're going out into their community. Maybe others are building a disaster-proof building. Maybe others are making a art installation for their community. And so all these different project options that they can work on as well. And so we curate them all into these kind of theme websites where kids can kind of pick and choose what they want to work on. They copy them into what we call a learning journal, which is this kind of like growing record of their project that their coach can access and give them feedback. Their coaches are going in, checking in with them every day. I had an idea for your project, or, hey, like, what do you think about this a little differently? Or I have a counter argument for you here, go play devil's advocate for me. Give me another example here. What if this? And, really checking in with them and pushing them really quite uniquely based on their own project idea and their level and what they know about the learner as well.
Amazing. So you've got these sort of, that personalization is stemming from these different sort of almost repositories of insight that I guess over time you're doing more and more research around what interests people at different age brackets in different cohorts. And how do you tend to tell me a bit about music? Because, I'm a musician. You'll see the guitar at the back. I'm a percussionist, right? So that's my thing. That's outside of all of the other things that I do.
Yeah.
And so music is ultra important. I'm a big, big fan of music. I just two shows ago, it's not published. I had the female, so tabla is the drum I play. It's an Indian drum. You sit on the floor, you play. It's quite popular these days.
Yeah.
And there's a master of that instrument, a chap called Zakir Hussain, who everyone knows. And the woman equivalent, who not many people know, unfortunately, but they will, is a lady called Anuradha Pal, and she's just incredible. She's just the absolute master with her hands and fingers, and she produces sounds like you cannot imagine. And we were talking about the power of music in healing, in thinking, in nurturing and developing, and so on. So how do you treat music in this virtual environment? How does that work? I'm fascinated.
Yeah, so we give learners lots of different opportunities for music. So each learner works on a quest, which is almost
Okay.
like a personal passion project that they're working on. So, I want to become a master at the tabla or at the guitar, and they don't have to choose music. It's one option, right? If they're passionate about it, they can follow that. And they're documenting their progress along the way and reflecting on it with their coach and setting little mini goals. And we're really helping them work towards that, deliberate practice and mastery. How do I get better and better and better? How do I, find a resource? How do I find a coach? How do I find somebody who can help me get better and continually give me feedback? So that's one way that we have some learners experiencing music. We also have a songwriting enrichment. So we've got lots of learners that are into music, that are, doing different kinds of digital music or physical music together, writing different songs together, collaborating, or, just sharing their work with each other. We've got a couple learner-led music clubs where we have learners that come together. We've got a musical theater club that meets each week. And so they're producing different, musical theater variations live together. And they actually just recently had a big in-person meetup for the whole musical theater group to come together. And they did a musical version of Tangled, the Rapunzel story.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And then, we also, within the projects, there's lots of different opportunities for, if music is your passion, to apply that, right? We did a remix cycle, which was all about, really, is anything original, or is everything a spinoff of something else? And so we did an art and music mashup project where you can, choose to mash up different inspirations. We did 8 billion stories, where you're telling the story of a culture that you're not a part of through performing arts, was another opportunity that you can infuse music. But those are just in the ones that we've got built out. Coaches are always open to different ways for learners to use music to express themselves in their projects. And that's really where your passion is. We always find a way to help apply that to the theme and to show their learning.
Yeah, wow, brilliant. I love it. And do you also have the grading system? Do you accept that, there should be a grading system for music? Like, grades are very popular in different parts of the world, grade 5 and grade 6 and grade 7. Do you do that as well?
No, we don't have a grading system for music. We do have a badge system where learners earn badges for demonstrating mastery of specific concepts or competencies. And so learners can earn badges, through, for their music as well. But it's not like a 94% mastery on this or anything like that.
Oh, I see. What percentage of your kids right now are in those? I don't know if you told me, where's the most dominant? Have you got the 18-year-olds coming to you? Have you got the younger 9 to whatever? What sort of age group is most popular in your 200?
Well, we just launched our 9th through 12th grade, our high school program this past year. So we've got just 50 high school learners, and the rest are in the 4th through 8th grade middle school program. Originally, we had the most 4th and 5th graders, and now I think we have a few more. We're a little bit higher in the 6, 12 to 14 range, but it actually is pretty evenly distributed, to be honest, across all of our grades. It's pretty evenly distributed, to be honest.
Yeah.
We used to have fewer of the upper middle school learners, but now since we've launched the high school, we see that, kids and families are staying with us.
Yeah. How do you manage, and what sort of role do you play with parent support on controlling social media usage outside of, because of course they get so used to virtual interaction, it's default for them. So how do you ensure that your pupils and the parents are, and you with them, are making sure that this doesn't go outside of the bounds of Prisma into the other apps? And sometimes it's okay, but it is a problem. It's a systemic problem going on to the TikToks and the snaps and Snapchats and various others. So do you play a role in that as well, or do you sort of take a step back?
I would say yes and no. So we do have learners on, they have Google Chat, so they're chatting with each other. We've got lots of different opportunities for them to chat with each other socially in a really safe and moderated way at Prisma. We've got, a cheer squad that's, hyping other kids up in different channels based on their interest. So they really can get that virtual social interaction through our platform, which is nice. So we don't actually see too much of a need for them to go off into spaces that are unmonitored or maybe less safe, because we do have that opportunity for them within Prisma. We do also talk to families all the time about social media usage and, how to engage in an online community. So we do a lot with families. We have a regular kind of parent speaker series or parent events where we talk about social media usage. Parents share best practices, their different ideas, suggestions, things that have worked, and really help build community around a lot of these things that we know lots of kids and families are struggling with. And that's something that's really special about Prisma too, is we do have this really vibrant parent community where the parents have really gotten to know each other nicely as well. And we talk to the kids a lot about as well. Digital wellness is one of our core competencies. It's something that we're talking about in every cycle. What does it mean to live a healthy life online? How do you build relationships with people in a virtual world? When you're communicating via chat, how could, something that you're saying potentially be misconstrued? Or, how can you be really clear with what you're saying and what you mean and be really positive and uplifting? So, I wouldn't say it's perfect, right? This is a challenge for kids and teenagers across countries and cultures. And, I don't think we're doing it perfectly yet, but we're not shying away from it. And it's definitely something to talk about and bring to the forefront and, continue to work on both as a whole and an individual case-by-case basis too.
Yeah. Fantastic. Vision Pro, the Apple AR/VR, or should I say the I don't know what they want to call it, the XR device, or just the cool device that they've launched. And then Meta did the same thing with Quest, and there's been so much hype around AR/VR. I remember writing a report about it in 2016, and only now do we see some major significant change. Nevertheless, there's just not enough software on these devices. But one day in the future, if it does pick up, I'm sure education will be one of those sectors that will be talked about, because, hey, that immersive learning is the way forward. Do you tend to have some sort of a vision, a roadmap, or do you at board level talk about, either the black swans or the big opportunities that you should be wrapping yourselves around? Because I guess you're actually, they used to say, like, traditional companies, oh, we're doing digital transformation, right? And so you're actually a born digital company, aren't you? I mean, a born digital brand on the ideology of digital as being the cornerstone of your delivery model. So it's not as if we did it physically, now we have to bolt this digital thing on. It's hard, by the way, as you can imagine. But you've been born in that. You're born that way. You're a digital native company. So tell me a bit about your vision for the future. Like, where do you see Prisma going in terms of the use of innovative technologies? Now, we just talked about ChatGPT, we talked about AR/VR. Well, as the CEO, what's going on in your head?
Yeah, what's going on in my head is that we love, new transformations in technology, and we're always open to using them. We're not scared of ChatGPT. We're not banning it. We love it. We think it's great. It's an accelerator and a sparker of human curiosity and innovation. And we think it's wonderful because we've never asked kids to write 5-paragraph essays about Romeo and Juliet, so that's wonderful. In terms of, VR, I think there's some accessibility issues there too. When there's a world in which, everybody can have one, we are all for that. I think we also imagine a world in which, one day we're developing our own, learning platform with a design team and a product team and really transforming there. But there's so many companies that are doing great things and so much kind of open source technology that we are happy to use other sources as well.
Do your teachers all work from home, I guess, because they're all delivering, right? So what sort of guidance, this is totally offshoot, but given that they have to be engaged and they have to be concentrating and they're constantly sort of, supporting, and they'll have to sort of be super adaptable. Sometimes a child is, top of their game. Sometimes they're not feeling so great. So they're like any teacher, they've got to play that role. And now they've also got to do it virtually. And we saw this with post-COVID environments where mostly in the corporate, executives really struggle with, Zoom fatigue and online fatigue. And, it's, oh my God, I can't do this again. And Zoom became, unlike now, where you and I are having a dialogue, really, but you're proficient with it. And so am I, right? Because we've got, years of experience in using this as just the medium that is pretty much in our mind doing what we would be doing face to face, albeit, I only see you till here, but then I see the full version of you. And then of course we'll interact differently. I'll use my hands, you'll use your hands, you'll look left, the body language thing kicks in. But, we try our best to use body language here as well to demonstrate that we're active and we're listening. And, when we're thinking, we might look up there or down there or whatever it may be. But let's class ourselves as being more experienced practitioners. Mm-hmm. How do you help your teachers? I'm sure they're not all, they might be, but they're not all digital natives. Some of them would be coming from, you describe them as from different fields. What's that onboarding phase or time that you are observing? What's that sort of, I hate to say time to productivity, it's such an awful thing, but what's that sort of onboarding period that you think is sensible to get someone feeling really natural and comfortable? Because not everyone is, let's be fair, let's be honest.
Well, we find actually, people that gravitate towards wanting to work in a remote role are usually pretty comfortable with technology. But for those that aren't, we do, number one is, I think, just feeling comfortable with the technology, right? Like, how does Zoom work? How do I change my settings? Those kind of basic, how do I do this? How do I, share my screen? How do I, use all the different features? So we do an onboarding where we kind of go through all the Zoom and facilitation basics. How do I navigate, our, shared folders within Prisma to find the curriculum that I'm delivering, to find the projects, to really invest kids. So we do lots of trainings around that when people are first onboarding. We've got about a 2-week onboarding process where they're just kind of learning the ins and outs, both of Prisma and what we believe and the history of the company. And then also, the nitty gritty of how to facilitate. In our first weeks, we have coaches working together in pairs. So a more experienced learning coach with a newer learning coach, a kind of a gradual release model where the coach who's been with us for a while is modeling, showing, the other coach is watching. Then the next week, they're kind of co-facilitating. One leads one part, another needs another part. Then in the third week, the newer coach is leading, but the more experienced coach is still there to support, jump in, answer questions. Something goes wrong, they can jump in and support them and provide them with feedback after. And, our head of schools are popping into sessions all the time. We record all of our sessions. So we run trainings each week where we're looking back at, here's a tricky moment that happened. Like, what could we have done? What could we have done better? How could this be better? Here's something really great that this coach did. What can we all learn from that or take away? And really just that sharing of best practices is kind of, just ingrained into, we have a regular Thursday meeting where we're, sharing best practices, things like that.
Amazing. What's the faculty? How many staff do you have right now?
20.
20. Okay. 20 staff, 200 kids. And I guess you're recruiting.
Yes. Well, not right now, because every time we post a job, it gets filled just like that so quickly. So no, we're fully hired for the, 23-24 academic year right now. But, we do add cohorts throughout the year as we add more families. It's, pretty quick, right? We have families that are interested in Prisma. So we open up a cohort, add a coach, and it just kind of snowballs.
Okay. And my final couple of questions, and then we'll start to move towards the end. Do you have sort of subject specialisms for these teachers? Like, is there someone who's really good? Like you said, someone's a PhD in maths and so on. So do you tend to see these teachers fall into certain primary, secondary specialisms? How do you organize the capability? What's your capability model there?
Yeah, that works a little differently at our middle school and our high school. At our middle school, each cohort has a core learning coach who's with them for all of their theme projects, and they have a specialized math learning coach as well. We've just found that math just happens to be one of those things that, it's just so progressing right through, we do have kind of specialized math learning coaches who work with learners in addition to their core learning coach who works with them on their theme-based projects and all of that. At the high school, we do it a little bit differently as kids are getting older. They've got these really intense academic interests, right? So we still have that concept of a mentor coach who meets with you, kind of sees you holistically across all content areas, who supports with, whatever next step you want to do after high school, with planning for that, with connecting you with mentors and internships and designing a capstone project that really showcases something that you're really passionate about. So we still have that concept of a mentor coach, but we also at the high school have academic specialist mentor coaches as well. So a real literacy expert who is, working with the literacy projects and giving feedback on literacy, a science expert who's really challenging kids in physics and chemistry and physical science and biology and environmental science, a math expert who's, taught everything from differential algebraic equations to, remedial math, who's supporting all learners at their level.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. I feel like I need to re-educate myself. I just need to be 25 years younger. So that's the difference.
Well, it sounds like
And
we have two budding Prismarians in your
oh
household.
yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, oh my God, it's a discussion that I'm going to have with my wife and of course
Mhm.
all of the friends that I have here. And you certainly want to be setting up in the UK, that's for sure, as part of your growth plans. And give me a
Absolutely.
shout when you decide to do that. I'll absolutely help. And
Thank you.
final few things really is to do with this the changing geopolitical landscape, right?
Mm,
So there's a lot of inequity in the world right now, and
right.
countries that are going through a tough time. If you look at Ukraine, it's been decimated. Here in the UK, because we are close to Ukraine physically as well, from proximity standpoint, we see people coming over from there really struggled with what's going on, and the world has its dark sides.
Yeah.
And so have you been thinking about, and I'm not saying you should do this, they're certainly not holding you to it, but at some point when you master this model, what you are doing can have just a seismic social impact,
Yeah.
outside of course, commercial value that you're making money on. There could be people all around the world in different parts of the world who could be educated in a way, in a joined up, consistent way with the power of technology that they
Mm,
can't do today. I mean, they do go onto YouTube and all of the free things that you can do, but of course, you're providing a very different experience that's
right.
stitching all of that together. And so there are hundreds of millions of children who don't get educated. I mean, if I just take India, because I know it, there's still, I mean, it's a very wealthy country, but 1.4 billion people, 600 million people still live on $3 a day.
Right.
And in that cohort, you'll have a lot of children who are going through very, very difficult, challenging,
Yeah.
upbringing, and aren't fully educated, and so on and so forth. And whilst there's so much charitable work going on in the world, you are delivering this in a very powerful virtual way. And not that I'm even going to go close to comparing you to Zuckerberg's message when he first launched Facebook, because you're not comparable to that. You're doing something, in my mind, way more powerful and impactful. Sorry, Zuckerberg, but when he did launch Facebook, his core message then, which was a nice message, was this leveling off, and equalizing the world where people can connect with one another. And of course, a lot of good things happen with that platform, uprisings and geopolitical change. What I'd urge you to think about, you don't have to answer this, but I'm sure you have a response, is at some stage in your future, and I think this is very important for investors and people who are parents as well, who join your world, essentially, who
Right.
sign up to your world, to know that this is not just for the few who can afford
Right.
$10,000 a month, or yes, should I say,
Yeah.
it's also for those who cannot afford it. And I know you
Right.
talked about scholarships, but even beyond that.
Yeah.
So I think that is so beautiful and so compelling whenever you're ready. And I
Yeah.
think a foundation of some sort with the Prisma model is waiting to be created. So you wake up in the morning feeling like, of course, you're making a difference to young children, but actually you're making a difference to people in parts of the world where education would be, far-fetched, not even fantasy,
Right.
just not even in the mix of reality, because of the struggles that those young children are going through. And you're changing that game. So I really feel excited about what you're doing. Sorry, I'm throwing this stuff in, but I feel so
No, this is
excited about
great.
the power of your model, if as and when it sort of goes to that level. Do you have a board? Do you have like a board or an advisory board that you've built, and how do you get that sort of external guidance?
Yeah, we do have a very small board now. Is just our founders. So pretty small right now, but we do definitely hope to grow an advisory board as we continue to grow and to think through things like that. We absolutely imagine a world in which there's a Prisma Foundation in which we can give
Yeah.
back, not just through need-based scholarships, but also maybe through partnerships with different organizations like Boys and
Correct.
Girls
Yeah.
Clubs or other places that are doing this great work, but providing
Yeah.
the education arm to it, right? Or
Yeah.
providing, the resources, the internet, the, laptops or whatever they would need to access Prisma. And then the coaches, right, are in the cloud. They're right there.
Yeah.
So we just need that, there's so many great places that are providing these supports for learners. And it would be so easy for us to plug in the education part of it in these instances. So we
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
would love to do that in the future. And it's something that we've thought about a little bit as well.
Yeah. So last few, we'll have a chat offline. Last few minutes, what would you say to the ardent skeptic, the parent, assuming that there's potential for them to send their kid to your school?
Right.
And what words would you leave that ardent skeptic with right now?
I think I would ask them are they 100% sure that their child's education is preparing them for the world of the future? Are they sure
Mm,
that their child's education is the best possible use of their time? Is there a world in which they could do things differently, have more time together as a family? And those, as a
mm,
parent myself, I know those years, it's going to go by so fast. You could have more time together as a family. You could have more flexibility, and you could have an education that's really engaging and exciting and preparing your kid for the future. It's a risk, right? It's a change. It's not the norm. And so I would say, if you're willing to take that risk to get the rewards of maybe your kid loving learning more and getting that time as a family together and doing things differently, then Prisma is the place to do it, because we have an amazing group of entrepreneur, risk taker families that are really living their best life, and kids that are excited about learning and passionate and really going to develop into the leaders of the world in the future. So I would say give it a shot if you want to take a risk on something.
Wow, I think that's a fair message, and I think that'll definitely get a lot of people thinking differently.
Yeah.
Because I think when you said, are you sure? Are you really sure? Are you 100% sure? Of course you're not, and
Yeah.
actually deep down, everyone knows that they're not really satisfied with the system. Let's be honest.
Mhm.
Albeit it's free or they're paying for it, and they just don't have the know-how or the awareness or the wherewithal or the courage sometimes to
Yeah.
try and break the fold. And that's no different to anyone who's trying to do something new for the first
Yeah.
time. And when your kids are involved, it starts to get a little bit more scary, doesn't it? Because you're like,
Of
oh my God,
course.
I'm responsible for the future of this child. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
I don't want
am
to
I
mess
doing
it
this on a
up.
whim?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to screw this up. Am I
High
doing it on a
stakes.
whim? You know? And so I have to tell you that I love what you're doing. I know it's early stages, as an entrepreneur, I can sense what you're doing, and I've done my own work. I know it's early stages in terms of adoption and global reach, and
Yeah.
you're developing the model as well. I think the demand for what you're creating is way greater than we know, and I think you know it, because that's why you're leading captaining the ship essentially. So congratulations to you and every one of those 200 children, and the 400 parents, or whatever the number of parents may be these days. I don't know.
Yeah.
And, I wish you all the success. We'd love you to come back regularly on the show, if that's okay, because we'd love to
Would love to.
track the journey, right? Just figure out what you're doing. We also have, I'd love to bring you into something called the Straight Talk Mavericks group, which is a
Oh, okay.
WhatsApp group where we have about 90 or so ex-speakers, and like you, they come from different walks of life. And that could be a great way for you, not just to promote what you do and educate and raise awareness and handle
Yeah.
people's fears and concerns and stuff, but get some really strong champions and supporters who believe in this, but haven't managed to create it themselves, basically.
Yeah. I'd absolutely
And
love to. I'm honored.
yeah,
Would love to come back
yeah,
and love to be part of the group.
yeah, and I'll pull you into that group. Actually, we'll swap numbers in a minute. I'll pull
Sure.
you into that group. So, listen, it's Kristen. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I've learned loads. I'm going to go off and do some digging. Treat us like your friends. We're here to promote and support your mission, because it's about our next few generations, and it matters to me personally. It's my big focus for my life, and being a parent like you, similar age kids, it's what we do day in, day out. And so you're making a difference, and you have my full support. So you just let us know how you need that. You need our help, and we have 30,000 straight talkers out there who watch this at some point, who will want to reach out to you. So I want to close by asking you to tell us how people can discover more about Prisma, like a website, any other contact details.
Yeah, sure. So our website is joinprisma,
Yeah,
joinprisma.com.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you can learn a ton there. You can sign up to talk with us. There's a joinprisma.com/talk-with.us to sign up for a time to talk to someone on our team to learn more. Tons on our website. And you can always email us at info@joinprisma.com as well.
Amazing. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much, Kristen. Look after yourself. Keep smiling. I love your energy, and you've just, it's brilliant what you're doing, no doubt. And we'll have you back on the show very, very soon.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Af signing off. Be well. Have a wonderful week ahead, and I'll see you on the next show. And do support Prisma. It's a very, very important cause. Thank you.
Thank you.